Alright, so this is case study 2 in week 5's formative. As I read, you're going to make sure that you highlight details that provide clues like events or the appearance of different species that help determine if the case study is an example of primary or secondary succession. We're going to make comments clarifying how those details connect to either primary or secondary succession, and we're going to go ahead and highlight the biotic factors in blue and the abiotic factors in red, because that will help us answer the questions that are required for this study. Again, the questions I'm referring to are on the first page of this document. Right, so this is about Yellowstone National Park. In 1988 in Yellowstone marked a year of severe drought. Very large fires swept through the park, fueled by attempts of suppression. So right away, I know that this is a disturbance, forest fire. And I'm going to put secondary succession question mark. Because I remember from the PowerPoint this week that, let me see, whoops, that's not it. That, oh, I don't have it, sorry. Wait, that secondary succession started from dramatic events like forest fires, right? Other disturbances that break up a already established community and destroy it, cause it to be completely reestablished. So let's see what happens. The fires destroyed a large portion of the biological life present in the areas that were affected by the flames. All right, there we go. So I'm gonna highlight that and put it as a clue for secondary succession. There was already life, but it was completely destroyed by a forest fire. Because I know that primary succession has to start where there's barren rock completely, and there's never been any life at all already established. But I know that's not the case with Yellowstone, because it says that the fire destroyed biological life that was already present. However, the area was not left completely annihilated. Although charred, like flamed, the soil remained intact, where weeds, eggs, small mammals, and insects remained alive, yet hidden below ground. I'm going to highlight that in blue, because that is a biotic factor. There are still living organisms buried in the soil that survived, because that's going to affect how succession takes place afterwards. Plants and animals were able to recover and return to the area relatively quickly. The area was carefully observed starting in 1999, where some regrowth was seen in some plant species. All right, there's another clue. Next stage in secondary succession. Again, as I'm writing these comments and highlighting, you should be doing the same on your document, because again, the annotations are being graded. So I'm making it so that you will have no problem, as long as you're doing exactly as I'm doing, you have no problem getting full credit. Okay. In the years following the fires, ample precipitation, meaning rain, and the short-term effects of ash and nutrient influx allowed the quick growth of native grasses. There we go. Highlighting that because that's a stage in secondary succession. Native grasses are referred to as pioneers. So I'm going to highlight that and then label it as pioneer species, because I remember that's one of the questions that are asked in the questions you have to answer. They were some of the first vegetation or plant life to grow after the devastating wildfire. Grasses were quickly followed by a growth of wildflowers and smaller bushes, and soil communities began to recover after the fire's effects. Highlight that and put it as a next step in secondary succession. All these organisms died and decomposed. The nutrients in the soil increased, allowing for vegetation types to colonize the area. Lodgepole pines, right, these are larger trees. So I'm going to put larger trees, part of climax community, question mark. Because remember, you do have to explain what the climax community is in those questions. As more pines started to regenerate or regrow, more animals started appearing in the environment. Elk began to migrate to the affected area that were affected by wildfires. So I'm going to put that in blue and then put that this is a biotic factor, the trees providing habitats for more organisms. Elk began to migrate to the area. Okay, so I know that this is also another biotic factor. May increase competition for space. They were observed feeding on newly emerging leaves, shoots, and other vegetation. So I'm going to say maybe compete for food sources with other organisms living, question mark. After some time, pines began to outcompete the grasses by creating too much shade, reducing their ability to obtain enough sunlight. So I'm going to put that as a biotic factor that affects, or I'm sorry, a biotic factor that affects the presence of other life forms, in parentheses, biotic. Excuse me. In the future, biologists expect that other trees such as fir and spruce will establish themselves recovering in the forest. Once the forest has returned to its previous state before the fire, it will be considered the climax community. So now you're going to pause and go to your questions, number 1 through 6, and use the annotations that you did as you were following along to answer those questions, and then submit by the 27th.